Okay.
So yeah, hi, I'm Jess. Just apologies firstly, I'm a bit sick, so if I have to turn my microphone off to have a cough, don't mind me. And I also have a clingy dog kind of loitering around me, so hopefully he doesn't start howling while we do this. I'll just share my screen quickly. So, can everyone see that okay? Yeah, fab. So before we kind of get into it, I wanted to do a bit of a quick Mentimeter, and I think the link has already been put in the chat for you. Or you can just go to Menti and put this code in. And I want to think about what comes to mind when you think of youth governance. And that could be any kind of like fears surrounding that, positives, really just anything that comes to mind around that. And I'll just come off the presentation and go on to the Mentimeter.
Yes, maybe. Oh, sorry.
What?
It was just if people hadn't got that code, it might have been worth copy and pasting the code into the chat.
Is the link,
But
the
link
here.
is in the chat. The link is okay. Cool. Sorry.
See, the first one we've got here is responsibility, and that is a big one. I think that's one of kind of the biggest things I suppose we kind of been going over with our board is kind of what the responsibility actually is, because it is quite a big responsibility and we don't want to kind of diminish that, but also not put them off what this kind of, it's not too scary, if you know what I mean. Yeah, that's really good. Youth-led, yeah. That's really one of our core values, being youth-led. Even before we had our youth board, you know, we were still youth-led in our ethos. Yeah, not common. Nice. I know I wasn't sure what to expect to come from this Mentimeter, but I think those are all really great kind of like words for it, and like empowerment, youth-led, a voice, and that ownership. But ownership is something that we found is really important. So I'll just go back to the slides. So thanks for doing that. So before I kind of get into maybe like this last year and our journey this last year, I kind of want to do a bit of a background of Open and the whole story. So Open started in 2011, and this is back way before I was involved, but it started off as a small peer education project in a different organisation at the time in Shetland. So they got some training. There was just a couple of staff members at the time. This is kind of like our core currently as well, our peer education. Right now we're in every secondary school in Shetland delivering peer education. I think we have about 11 different issue-based workshops that all come from young people. They come up with the topics and then they develop them alongside staff, and like we might get people in from other services who are kind of specialised in that area to have some input on that as well. So yeah, that's kind of our core and where it's all come from. And about, I think it was around 2018, we started our peer mentoring project as well. And that kind of came from the young people wanting to do a bit more, like they were in the schools delivering the workshops, but they wanted to maybe do more of that one-on-one support for younger young people. So the staff got trained to be able to train volunteers, Me and Shannon were some of the first peer mentors when we were still volunteers, and we were matched with mentees who'd kind of maybe similar life experiences that we helped to create goals and like achieve them goals as well. And this has kind of morphed over the years on how it has been running. So right now it's kind of like organically grown relationships outside of our cafe rather as kind of recruited ones. So yeah, and then we have the cafe, which has really been probably our fastest growing part of the organisation for this last year. It actually started as a pilot project called the Open Up Project, where we did pop-up cafes across Shetland. But from that, we kind of found consistency was key. And that's how the cafe kind of came about. We started running a cafe 2 hours a week out of the Olive Tree, which is a local cafe. And yeah, now it's Mondays and Thursdays, 4 till 6. We were providing free paninis and coffees for the young people. This has all been quite dependent on funding, but I think currently we're doing this again. But they don't have to come and spend money if they just want to come and hang out. That's totally fine. And that's kind of what that is. And yeah, we've done a lot of peer research. This is probably the newest product. So it all started, we did the Emotional Wellbeing and Resilience Project, and that was in partnership with our local council. Myself and 5 other young people were employed 2 hours a week to do this project. And we this is where peer research first came about. We did kind of workshops and focus groups to find out what young people in Shetland thought about access to services and how easy that was and what were their top kind of issues that they felt affected them. But it was quite informal at that time. We didn't really have a lot of guidance on what we were doing. And then our kind of proper peer research came about, and I'll hand over to Shannon to speak about that. You're on mute, Shannon.
Thank you very much. So like Jess said, the Emotional Wellbeing and Resilience Project was almost the pilot for what peer research came when I came along. So me and a colleague, Akira, were hired for the Open Space Project. We were paired up with 2 professionals. Well, not that we weren't professional joining the workforce, but we didn't have the actual university side of any ideas of how to conduct research. So we were paired up with Amy Calder, who was basically her whole deal is ethics. She's the Youth Link Scotland person that helps them figure out all their ethics and any sort of work that she does, and it's mainly youth work that she works in, so it was really good to have her. And we also had Jennifer Russell, who had links to Shetland and grew up in Shetland but now lives south, so it was really good to have that direct local link with her as well. But she's also a research consultant, so she helped us shape how we were going to do our questions, and Amy kind of made sure we were doing everything by the book and not doing anything that would maybe put participants at risk or make them feel like it wasn't the best outcomes they could get from the research. The Open Space Project was coming about because young people said that they didn't feel like they had a space to belong or that was their own. That ran for about a year, and then after that we went and presented it to the community, to different services, and from that the hub down next to the Happy Haddock was opened, and young people were happy with this. It wasn't all their needs met, but it was a step towards young people seeing that when they actually take part in research projects and we're able to present services and higher ups with real data and real wants from young people, that it's a collective of young people, it's not just one group saying this. Change can happen, but it's also, we were made aware from that once your research goes out, it's out and you have less control. And from that, we were also commissioned by Children's Services to do a quick research project reviewing their vision statement. So we also went around the schools and just heard from young people what they felt a vision from Children's Services would be, with them at the heart of it, and what they felt Children's Services should be taken forward in their next 10 years of work. And that was really good. We presented that back to Children's Services and they used that to influence their new plan. And finally, we've just finished a 14-month project on the Alcohol and Other Drugs Project. This research project was probably the hardest and the most rewarding. Coming up with questions that were ethical and correct, but still got to the heart of what we wanted to ask was quite difficult. We wanted to find out why young people were taking it and really steer clear of what young people were taking. The involvement we got was great. Our partnership work throughout this project has been great. We've had people like Wendy McConaughey, who's worked on the research team from the get-go, who helped circulate our surveys through getting it in Shet News. Robin Calder made every PSE class fill out our survey. So we managed to get 215 young people to take part in this in this research project. And the findings from that, we fed back to the community, we presented to our young people first, and right now we think that we're going to be taking it to different services and seeing what they would like to do with the work to carry on the conversation within the community surrounding the findings that we've had. And from the Alcohol and Research Project, we've actually had some live working groups that are going to be coming from this. Right now, it's still in the very early stages, but we're really hoping that we can get the SADP and possibly children partnerships. This is just an idea of what the live working groups could look like that comes on after the research, because the research is all well and good, but we want to make sure that palpable change can happen or influence the change that young people want to see. So we're hoping that as we go forward, we'll be able to do that. And sorry, Jess, I just need to check now. Am I speaking about the research projects of the board now, or is that later on in the presentation?
We'll speak a bit about that later.
Okay, cool. I'll pass back over to Jess now. Thank you for listening.
So yeah, and then, so I started in this role last year in January 2022. That was called a Time to Shine leadership placement, and it was funded by the Rank Foundation for 12 months to start a kind of a new project under Open, I guess. And what we set for me to look into was, could we become like a fully independent youth-led charity, and kind of explore what that would look like. Do young people actually want to lead the project, or are they kind of happy with how it's going? So in February of 2022, I'd set up what was called the steering group, and we recruited young people to meet twice a month where we would kind of explore this area. We looked a lot at our vision and our mission, so this is kind of what we came up with, and we looked a lot into values. There was a lot of talk about the values around this time. These were kind of ones that we kind of picked out from the conversations around it. As well, Open, we usually we're working with young people 16 to 25 or 14 to 25 in volunteer roles. But we kind of felt like for the board, maybe we should be extending that to 29. We had a few conversations about this because I think we kind of kept seeing our volunteers once they'd hit 26, and then there wasn't really anything for them anymore in our project. Like, we still kept contacting that, but the volunteer opportunities weren't there because they were no longer young people. But the board kind of felt like the right position for when they're reaching that age to stay on. Actually, currently, most of our board members are actually 16 to 18, but it's great to have this opportunity for ones that, you know, they've kind of outgrown their other roles and can now go onto the board and use their skills in that one. But it is up to 29, so when they turn 30, they'll no longer be able to be on the board, but there is other opportunities that will come after that. But yeah, we worked kind of just throughout all of last year as the steering group. We got pizza for our meetings. I managed to get a pot of funding to make sure we could provide pizza, and that got people through the door, and we kind of seen different young people in and out. It was kind of funny as well because it was the group that we'd seen probably most males in, which is just something to like observe. And also we got a lot of completely new volunteers to this group. So normally we would maybe see volunteers from like peer education coming into the group, but this group seemed to attract lots of people who had never been involved in the project before, so that was quite interesting. So this year, 2023, this is kind of how it's looked. In January, we formed our interim board, so we hadn't set any like office bearing roles yet, but we were meeting kind of as our interim board. We gained our charitable status in July. We had originally planned to actually only go for this next year in March 2024, but we kind of just saw this as an opportunity, like, why are we holding it off for that long? So we decided, right, we're just going to apply. Our interim board had like major input with writing the constitution. Kind of myself and our project coordinator Una had kind of done all the admin side of it, but they were making all of the decisions on, you know, what's our quorum, what's our maximum number of trustees, all that sorts of things. So I think that was really valuable for them to have that process, and for us as staff as well. Like, it was been a learning journey for all of us. We also gained funding in July that secured my post and Shannon's post, and everything to do with the board and supporting the board, their training, and that's for 4 years. That was from Esme Fairburn, and yeah, they've really believed in us. They gave us additional funding for additional year, and they ring fenced 10 grand specifically for the board's training and development. So we'll have to have a good think about how we do that and like how best to utilize that money. In September, we held our launch event. It was we held it as an EGM. Our board trustees kind of presented at it alongside the staff. We went through the history of Open and what their hopes are going forward. And I think that was just really great as our first one. We really hope going forward our AGMs can actually be like youth-led events and not just be kind of a standard AGM, but have them leading on that and making it engaging and try and get more young people involved through these events. And then as of yesterday, we had the full transfer of our organisation. So now Shannon and myself and all of our co-workers are officially employees of Open and not of Voluntary Action Shetland. So it was a really exciting and emotional day yesterday. But yeah, it's all just really come together really well. So I want to speak a bit about the support and development, because I think that's been really, it's going to be the most crucial thing, and it is the most crucial thing going forward. And I think, you know, it's important for any trustees to have support for their development, particularly the new ones, not just young ones, but, you know, so we'll speak a bit about what we're doing, but I want to go back to the Mentimeter. And I think, yeah, just in general, not thinking just about young trustees, but what support do you think new trustees would need? And there's, I'll get the new code up as well. So bear with me, just loading. So yeah, the code is just there if you need it. And this can be really any kind of support. I don't really want to give answers, but thinking about things like training, peer support as well. But what do you think is really important? Mm-hmm. I think that team approach is really important, and really kind of drilling in that collective responsibility and like making sure people don't feel like it is only on them. You know, everyone is in it together. I think that has been the most important part. We've been so lucky so far that all of our board has gotten on so well. Most of them have not known each other prior to this, but they have gelled extremely well. Space to ask questions, yeah. Understanding jargon, yeah, we've got our little jargon buster at the bottom. We've made up our own ones, like, you know, normally it's AOCB, but the young people felt AOBQ was better. So that means any other burning questions or any other burning statements. That's what they decided for their one. Confidence, mentorship, information on the role, 100%. Team approach, meeting with other trustees, space to collect thoughts, support and encouragement, equity and voice, knowledge of past. I think that's a big thing, especially because as I said, a lot of our trustees coming in have been completely new to the organisation. So I've kind of made sure when meeting with people, kind of speaking about the whole wider picture and like trying to facilitate that continuously, that people do know what all the bits of Open is, because we are quite big now compared to how it used to be. So I'll just go a bit back to the slide. I think these are all amazing, and I'll just share with you what it is that we've been doing kind of to support the development and what we plan to do. So before I go into that, I just wanted to speak a bit about like what does youth-led mean to us. So this is a quote that I found right at the start of my role, that I thought kind of fit how we are as well at Open. So as the name suggests, for an organisation to be truly youth-led, all of its decision-making positions must be filled by young people. These positions should not be symbolic. Young people should have real decision-making powers and are leading the organisation. Furthermore, for an organisation to be youth-led, most, if not all, of its members should be young people, although it is possible for some adults to have a role in the organisation. So I think that's quite important because some of our staff are not young people, but actually most of us are younger. I'm a young person, and we do have young staff, but some are not. But nearly every single staff member has started off as a volunteer, and now we have our board who are all going to be young trustees and are members of the organisation, because we're a two-tier charity. All of our members will be aged 14 to 29 as well. So yeah, but it's also just recognising sometimes we need skill sets that maybe we're utilising them skill sets in people who are not young people as well. So the kind of support that I provide for our trustees is ongoing one-to-one support. So initially we always start with an induction, and that goes into like the history of Open, kind of policies and procedures. It's a time to ask any questions. We usually go through our annual report together. And then we use what's called a wellbeing wheel, which we got from a charity in Dundee. They shared that with us. So you can see a picture of the wheel there, and we kind of speak about support and development, wellbeing and their volunteering, their roles and responsibilities, skills and knowledge, meetings and commitment, and working as part of a team. So this is quite like a good talking tool, and I meet with our trustees at least twice a year, but if they want to meet more regularly than that, then I'll be happy to do that. But it's really just good to gauge like where people are at. I like to do this right at the beginning before they've maybe even properly started, just to see how are they feeling in their roles and responsibilities and skills and knowledge. And then it's not like a comparison tool, but I think it has been quite helpful for some of them to kind of compare from their first one and then like 6 months later or a year later, like how much they've improved, and it really helps them kind of feel sturdy in like their development. Something else we offer is a Y-Rock. There's also I-Rock, which is for adults. This is a wellbeing tool. It's not something that's like mandatory at all, but it's having it there for our trustees and all of our volunteers. If they feel like their wellbeing is struggling, then we can kind of use this tool with them, and it's quite like a holistic approach to someone's well-being and looking at maybe where areas might be a bit more of a struggle and where aren't, and how can we support them to can feel better in that. But as I say, this is not like a mandatory one. It's just it's there should someone like to do that. And then we have our training. So we've actually just nearly finished our first training month. What we're going to do is every year after we've kind of elected a new board, we'll carry out a training month. So everyone gets their inductions as they start. And this list has actually grown recently. So we've got our governance training that Aisha runs, and that's really good, and it helps them understand that roles and responsibilities really fully. Our financial training, which we've not done yet, but we're doing soon, but I think that's really going to benefit. I think that's where people start to freak out a lot, is when we come to like the finances, but it's such a big part of it. So it's just about making it understandable for everybody. Employer training, and this was just quite a quick one, but I think it was really good, and it helped people kind of understand their responsibilities as an employer. And it was a space to ask questions and think a bit further about it. We also do leadership training that's run by myself and my co-worker Wayne. It's a very interactive kind of training, and I think we go into things like learning styles and like kind of teamwork styles and things like that. But I think it's also really good for that team building too, but it's kind of like helping people realise their own leadership. And then also child protection, because we are a youth charity, it's really quite valuable. Originally, we'd have thought just to do level 1 child protection, but we're going to increase that to level 2, just so everyone is fully informed about what the protocols are around that, and if there was ever anything to happen, that they feel secure in being able to deal with that. So we also have mentoring. So one of the questions that came up when I was first in my role was, why not have a youth advisory board? And a lot of other organizations, they have their big board and then they have their youth advisory board. And it was quite valid. There was someone that said you could actually pay a youth advisory board when we have employment opportunities. But at the end of the day, the youth advisory boards were generally not making decisions. So we just kind of thought, why are we not just flipping this on its head, having our big board as the young people, and then having, I suppose, an advisory board or a sounding board of people with more skills or expertise. So we identified mentors for our board. Currently, we have 3 active mentors, and one of them has been on many boards and committees since they were a young person. We have other people that are kind of like, heads of organizations, and they have a lot of skills and have been really helpful for our board, particularly in the transition process as well. And they don't come to every meeting, but they come to, just every so often. If there's a meeting that would be relevant for them to come to, we invite them. We've got like a chat so that if we need to ask them questions, then we can ask them questions. But mentors are not decision makers. It's more just guidance or being able to share information with the board so that they can make informed decisions. And how we kind of see this going forward is when our trustees turn 30, if they would like to then mentor the board, then they would be more than welcome to do that as well and share their skills that they've learned while being on the board with new trustees on the board. So you were near the end now, but I want to speak a bit about looking forward. But I'm going to pass to Shannon just now to speak a bit about how we're going to be utilising peer research and our subgroups.
So I did begin touching on this in the last slide, then caught myself. But what we're hoping for is when we set up the peer research groups, we'll be working alongside the board for them to kind of give us direction on what we're researching. So essentially, each of the projects we've done so far has been backed up the need for that, either due to previous research or different things that we've heard through the project. But generally, it's past research that's meant there's need for this research project. And then it's been asked to young people if they think that's a good idea, and the research projects happened. But we're hoping with these subgroups that the young people, hopefully each subgroup will have at least one board member a part of it, and board members will set the research topic. The way that we'll make sure that these research topics aren't just what our board wants researched and will benefit the wider Shetland community is we'll figure out ways that once we've decided on a topic to ask the wider Shetland community, well, the wider young people community in Shetland, if they think this is something that is an issue for them that they're facing. And if it is, we'll carry on with that research project. The plan is to also take these subgroups through the research sort of journey. Up till now, we've done some collating and some just collating with the young people and taking them through that research journey. But now we're going to actually be doing that collating the whole way through with them. So it won't be me going away and saying, this is what I think it's coming out of. Do you guys agree? I'll actually be deciding what's coming out of the research alongside the young people. So they really will be researching this time around. Not they weren't previously, but it's going to be a huge flip in how it's worked so far. And we really will be getting guided, like Jess has said, this whole youth-led thing will be carrying on through this. So it's a really exciting time. And yeah, I think that's me, and I'll pass back to Jess.
Yeah, I think it'll just be great because I suppose something we've learned from the research, it's not always us that's going to be the ones to fix the issue, but I suppose the board can also then set a topic which might help them make informed decisions about the organisation and make sure they're still keeping in line with what the young people of Shetland actually want from Open and not getting taken off on any tangents, just because they are a small group of young people. But I suppose it's making sure that we are doing best by all young people in Shetland and not just a small group of young people. As well as subgroups as well. We've not set any at the moment, but I know that I think our chair is going to be bringing the idea of a fundraising subgroup because I think they're all quite interested in kind of gaining skills in fundraising and raising funds for Open too. So I suppose we're just going to see where that takes us alongside our peer research groups. Is there going to be other subgroups that come along the way as well? And then, yeah, going forward as well, it's not just about our own board being youth-led and being youth-governed, it's about embedding youth leadership within our community. So we really want to share the work that we're doing both locally and maybe even at a national level. It would be great to involve other young people in Shetland on our training month or any other training that we do. And it's not like they have to join our board. It would be great to see young people on other boards or community councils as well across Shetland. So I'll probably be working to maybe speak with other boards or like the likes of community councils about, is this something that they're interested in, but also kind of working with people already in those positions to make sure it's not tokenistic. Like they're not just getting young people on a board to say they have a young person on their board. And how do we work best? How do they appropriately support a young person to be able to carry out these roles? And kind of, yeah, just see young people in more leadership opportunities, like across the board. We'd love to see our board continually kind of refreshing as well. I think that's just something that all boards sometimes have to be wary of, that it's not just the same people over and over. But I think by involving young people, it kind of prevents that from happening because young people's lives are always changing. But yeah, it'd be really great to see that across Shetland, that there are more young people in these leadership roles. And then, as I say, maybe even at a national level, like sharing our learnings online. Like we've got all this amazing things we can do online now, to see this happening across the board. And yeah, so as I say, we're in the very early stages of it. Who knows, maybe in like a year we'll be able to share even more of what we've learned. It is just quite very much at the beginning right now, but I'm very excited to see where this all goes. And I think the board will agree with me on that. So that's kind of my spiel over. My email is there and our social media accounts are also there. But yeah, just happy to take any questions if anyone has any in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and speak them as well. I'll stop sharing my screen now.